Hey friend, do you want to offer meaningful learning solutions that create behavior change, fit in the flow of work, and yield real results for your nonprofit? If yes, this is the podcast for you. Join me as I explore instructional design and leadership development best practices, as well as change management, belonging, and influence. If we haven't met yet, I'm Heather, and I've been in your shoes. I'm a learning and development consultant and founder of Skill Masters Market. Before starting my business, I led learning and leadership development initiatives for a large national nonprofit. I know what it's like to need to develop your staff quickly and effectively, and to build the relationships and cut through the organizational layers to be successful. And I'm bringing all of that to you in this podcast. So block your calendar, turn off your Teams or Slack chat, and let's dive in. It's learning for good.
We need a training. In L&D, we often get approached with the solution rather than the problem. And it's our responsibility to peel back the layers to identify the problem and then validate or propose an alternative solution. So how do we identify the needs of the potential training audience? I'm going to share 3 ways we can identify audience needs at the training by training, case by case level. Now, if I were going to identify needs at a more global level, a more macro scale, I'd do a more formal training needs assessment. And I'd also recommend starting with a competency model. I think that's absolutely essential. But that's not what I want to talk about today. Today, I want to talk about the more micro level. Someone has approached you with a training request, and you have to identify what the actual needs are. As a consultant and as someone who has worked in-house, I'm sharing my process. Are you ready? Let's dive in. It's learning for good. L&D leaders are responsible for identifying overarching needs through more robust training needs assessments. But that doesn't mean instructional designers and other L&D or talent development pros are exempt from identifying needs. When we are approached with a training request, it's our job to do a little research for ourselves. Often the time we have to do this research is limited. Your capacity and the capacity of your subject matter expert is limited, and you may not even feel like you have the expertise to do the analysis. So what do? How can we validate the audience's needs with limited time, capacity, and expertise? Today, I'm going to share 3 ways that we can identify the needs of our potential training audience. The first is SME input. You were likely assigned a subject matter expert or SME or SME, depending on how you want to pronounce it, to help you with your training project. The SME is deeply familiar with whatever the content is, and sometimes with the audience as well. They are an asset to you. So schedule a one-on-one meeting with them. I'd recommend at least 60 minutes, more if you can get it, and let them know you'll be asking them a series of questions to help you understand the needs of the training audience. Now, I know I set this up as you're validating and that kind of thing. I would not recommend telling them that you're second guessing their training request. That's not the point of this conversation. The point is for you to listen and understand their perspective. It's an input. Now, what questions should you ask? Here are a few of my go-to questions. The first is, what is it that people need to do related to this topic? What are they doing now instead? So what's that gap? Why are they not doing these things already? And for this question, you're going to listen for things in their answer, like the people don't know that they should be doing it, or they don't know how to do it, or maybe they just don't want to do it. And then sometimes there's some environmental factor preventing them from doing it. Now, as you ask these questions, it's going to give you insight into how to approach the behavior change. If they don't know they should be doing something, that's information. So how can you get information to them? and it might not be training. If they don't know how to do something, well, that's probably a training. So how can you help them develop those skills? And you're going to continue kind of sorting through the answers that you've received and figuring out what they mean for you. Interviewing the SME is a great way to learn more about the needs, which can then help you shape or design the solution. The second option is audience input. I always ask if I can have some time with the audience. Depending on access and capacity, this might be a focus group where I get a group of people from the audience together at one time. Or it might be a handful of one-on-one interviews where I can talk to them individually. Or sometimes it's even a survey. The important thing is that you can validate what you heard from your SME with the actual audience. Now, this isn't because the SME's information is bad or wrong, but sometimes SMEs have been removed from the environment that the audience is operating in. And so it's helpful to hear directly from the audience. Now, what you learn in this case, so while what you learn from the SME might be more helping you shape the design, what you learn from the audience is often more helpful in development. So for example, the SME's input might have given you what you needed for the learning objectives and maybe the modality of the learning experience. But the audience input can validate those things, but can also help you shape the scenarios or the activities or the discussions to make sure that they really resonate with the training audience. Now, what am I asking the audience? Typically, I'll ask things like, describe a typical day or week or month in your job. What does it look like? Tell me about a time you did X. Now, at this point, we're going to bring in whatever it is that the subject matter expert said they need to be able to do. So tell me about a time you did that thing. And you're going to listen for the situations that they share, the people who are involved, the processes that they used. You might even hear their motivation for taking the action. Now, after they've shared about a time they did that thing, then ask them what went well in that situation when you use that skill or performed that action. What went well? What was challenging? And what made it challenging? Again, these questions are going to help you better understand their day-to-day experience in their work. But you'll also pick up on things that will allow you to adapt your objectives to make them more specific and relevant. You might hear things that will allow you to validate or change the modality that you've had in mind. But you'll also hear things that will help you create the training itself. And again, I'm thinking about those scenarios and activities and discussions, the things they're actually going to do to achieve the objectives. One final way I'd recommend is to review documented expectations. Is there something in their job description related to this need? Is there a standard operating procedure or an SOP? Is there a program guide? Is there some sort of documented process? Because if there is something already documented, you can use that to build out your content. And depending on what it is, you can refer to it as an on-the-job resource for them and really make it performance support. Go to the training or whatever solution you're creating, they learn to use the resource, and then they go back into their day-to-day and use the resource on the job. This makes it really clear what they are expected to do and how they are expected to do it. And it makes it easy for you to make those expectations clear. So this is another great way to identify your training audience's needs. Okay, hopefully that helps. The 3 ways you can identify training audience needs: SME input, audience input, and documented expectations. Now, I'm sure there are other ways that you could go about validating or identifying training audience needs. These are 3 ways that have worked for me when I'm coming in on that case-by-case basis. Someone's approached me with a training request, and I need to make sure I understand why the training is a need and if training is the actual right solution.
Hey friend, was this episode helpful for you? Did you like what you heard? Do you want more content like this? Here are 3 things you can do. Hit subscribe. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice. Share this episode with a colleague. This means so much to me personally. I read every review, but it also helps me learn what content you like most so I can create more of what you want. All right, turn that Teams or Slack chat back on when you're ready, and I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.